Are we waiting on the CDC or are we not waiting on the CDC? Man, an Alaska senator got to put it straight on the CDC director this week, and after their exchange, well, I just don't know what's going on. What's going on with the CDC? What's going on the conditional framework for sailing? Let's talk about it. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Lido Loca. I'm your host, Tony, here with the latest cruise news. Well, today let's talk about the framework for conditional sailing. This document came on the scene October the 28th, 2020. It was a replacement of the blanket no-sail order that had been in place and extended since early March 2020. The hope of the conditional framework for sailing is that the CDC would provide guidance to the cruise lines so that they could resume sailing in a way that is safe, in a way that would be protective of American citizens, but also in a way that cruise lines could get their business going. And we're sitting here in March and interesting revelations. Okay, so there is a framework for conditional sailing. What we understand at this point is there are 4 phases to that framework, and we are in phase 1. Now, to get from phase 1 to phase 2, the CDC needs to provide technical documents to the cruise lines so that they can meet the requirements of those technical documents. But up until this point, those technical documents have not been provided. And communication around when those documents will be provided has been sketchy, to say the least. Now, interestingly, this week, a senator from Alaska had a chance to talk directly to the director of the CDC, and she asked in very plain language what the time frame is for cruising to resume. She spoke out of a passionate plea for the people in Alaska that are trying to decide in 2021 whether to open up their businesses for tourism for this summer season or whether to keep their businesses closed down until next year. And the answer was astounding. I'm going to play the whole clip toward the end of this video. The build up, the question from the senator, it takes a while to get there. I would encourage you to listen to it and then listen to the response from the CDC. More about that later. Let me talk about the framework for conditional sailing. I don't even think that this thing's going to happen. That's my personal opinion. I feel like the reason that there aren't technical documents coming forth is because there is possibly some sort of thought process that this document will go away. I don't have any insider knowledge. This is just me looking at the signals. This is just me speculating. But let me remind you of the 3 ways that this document can go away. The first way that this order could go away is the exploration of the declaration by Health and Human Services that COVID is a public health emergency. So if you remove the public health emergency, this no-sail order will go away. How do we remove the public health emergency? Well, we need to continue to control COVID, fight COVID here in the United States. Looking at the latest COVID numbers, the COVID case counts are decreasing, but not rapidly like we saw earlier in the year. The last data shows around 54,000 newly reported cases in the United States. If we look at the fatality number, that number has dropped in half in 30 days. Right now, we are still sadly losing 1,000 people, 1,000 plus people a day to this disease. But that was 50% less than it was 30 days ago when that number was 2,000. And of course, one of the main things that's driving down that fatality number is the rollout of vaccine. Remember, the purpose of the COVID-19 vaccines is to keep you from getting the disease COVID-19. There's no guarantee that you will not be exposed to the coronavirus or carry the coronavirus, but the manifestation of the COVID-19 disease, the vaccine is designed to prevent that. And then even in cases where the disease does manifest, the vaccine is designed to keep it from being deadly. So this is the game that we're playing, where it's all about life and death. The goal is to have less people die from the disease COVID-19. We got about 13% of the population vaccinated here in the United States, which means if it was a 2-dose vaccination, you've had both doses, or if it was a single-dose vaccination, you got the single dose. There's 24% of the population that's had at least 1 shot, and so you've got to assume in a couple weeks, if everybody gets that second shot, then we will have 24, almost 25% of the population vaccinated, and the vaccine rollout continues to ramp up. I think the last numbers I saw, 2.5 million people a day getting vaccinated. And so in the next 90 days, we will have a lot of people vaccinated here in the United States. So with those numbers going down, with the increase of the vaccination, we could be getting to the point where COVID is not a declared public emergency. The second way the framework for conditional sailing will go away is if the CDC director pulls it back. So at the discretion of the CDC director, she could, with the stroke of a pen, rescind the conditional framework for sailing. And again, teasing the Alaska clip, I think they could rescind this framework for conditional sailing. More on that. And then the third condition for the way that the framework for conditional sailing could go away is we hit the date November the 1st, 2021. Is that the path of least resistance? Just let the calendar roll until November, and then this thing just expires on its own, but then you're left with a question, will something replace it? That possibly could happen, but we could roll into November with most of the population vaccinated, where the fatality rate for COVID has driven all the way down, and this may not be a health emergency anymore. So it's going to be interesting to see what the landscape looks like in November. But let's talk about this exchange between the senator in Alaska and the director of the CDC. Before we get there, let me quickly invite you to subscribe to this YouTube channel. If you like staying up to date with everything that's going on in cruising, please consider subscribing with the notification bell on. Now, again, the question from the senator takes a little while to get there. It's worth listening to, but if you have to, skip ahead and pay close attention to what the director of the CDC says in response to, I feel like, a very well-crafted and a very legitimate question by the senator from Alaska.
Quickly, we can move out. The vaccine guidance and the vaccines shots in arms has given us a kind of a ray of hope here. Spring's coming, vaccines are getting in arms, and people are feeling better, but the economy is still struggling. And the guidance that seems to be coming is not perhaps consistent with what we're seeing on the ground, or this is what Alaskans are sharing with me. We have a significant tourist industry. We welcome people to come up. We want them to be safe. We are going to encourage all of the continuing protocols, but we've been struggling in trying to get the economy back on track when 60% of your tourists that come to the state of Alaska come by cruise ship. We've got a conditional no sail order, or a conditional sail order in place that's effectively a no sail order. Dr. Walensky, we've had an opportunity to speak with folks on your team. Alaskans aren't pushing to say, don't send people our way if it's not safe. Don't use this if it's not safe. But what they are asking for is some kind of guidance in terms of timeline. It's the timeline so that you can know to plan. Do we go ahead and the hundreds of small businesses that are reliant on these tourists coming up, do they open up, or do they acknowledge that this is going to be the second season in a year where they will have nothing and effectively know whether to shutter their operations now? So when we're talking about health impacts, we all want to make sure that we're following the guidance and the science and all that comes with that. But there's also this recognition of the economic impact. Certainty is helpful. We haven't had much certainty with this virus, and it's been challenging. Can you give me any kind of guidance to give Alaskans in terms of what we might be able to expect with where this guidance is in the process? When you say later, does that mean at the end of 2021? Does it mean in 3 months? Does it mean in 1 month? What kind of guidance can you provide when it comes to the CDC's order as it relates to the conditional sail order?
Thank you for that question. First of all, I understand the economic impact of the no sail, the conditional sail, and the travel, and so we don't take that lightly. We have provided technical assistance on the conditional sail, where we've provided a 4-phase strategy for how we could get sail open. We are in phase 1 of that, moving towards phase 2. This is an interagency decision. It is not a decision solely up to the CDC. So I would be remiss if I was able to do that by myself, because the decision is not solely up to us. What I will
second phase, going to that second phase, can you give me some indicator in terms of a timeline there?
I can't, simply because I don't believe it's solely in our jurisdiction to address. It's not necessarily a CDC.
So who else is part of the decision-making process then beyond CDC?
I believe Department of Transportation, OMB, there are numerous others that are making these decisions.
I want to follow up with you, and I know we have an opportunity for that later, and I'll look forward to that. But again, you need to, CDC's role is to work through the health safety. We understand and we respect that, but just trying to gain some sense as to timing.
Oh, that's interesting, right? So I've been working under the assumption that the CDC was the gatekeeper. And this is really the first time that I've ever heard any rhetoric from the CDC that said this conditional framework that we developed, that we put in place, that we're providing technical documents for, it's not just up to us. Obviously, the director of the CDC is on the spot there, but it's a fair question. If it's not up to you, then who is it up to? And I didn't get the warm and fuzzies from that answer. It's up to some other people. I think it's these people. I mean, that's the leader. I don't know. For me, this whole exchange troubled me. Again, I thought that the senator from Alaska asked a very important, a very poignant, a very reasonable, fair question, and the answer, no warm and fuzzies. I was just editing the video and I wanted to jump back in here. It's not surprising to me that the CDC would need input from Homeland Security, would need input from the Coast Guard, would need input from local public health departments. I'm not saying that that is the shocking thing here. I'm saying the shocking thing here is the idea that they are not the tip of the spear. The idea that they're not the ones making the final decision, because this is their order. So if this is your order, of course, get all the inputs from all the agencies that you need to make those right decisions, to develop those policies. But I don't feel like this is what the CDC director said here. The director said it's not up to us. And so obviously it begs the question. If it's not up to you, then who's it up to? And it doesn't seem like there's an answer. So that's all right. Back to the video. Sorry, I wanted to clear that up because I could already hear the objection. Of course, the Coast Guard's got to put input. That's not what I'm saying. I think all of us, or many of us, most of us, working under the assumption that the CDC has been the gatekeeper during all of this. The CDC has not provided the next level of information to the cruise lines to get restarted. It's impacting people in Florida. It's impacting people in Alaska. It's impacting Americans who work in cruise travel all over the country. And the answer is, I don't have a date. It's not up to me. And I'm not really sure who all it's up to. That's a little bit unsettling. I'll tell you that. But, and I try not to read between the lines too much, and I try not to get into some of the deeper theories. But maybe if now it is more of a coalition, and if there is a broader group making this decision, then maybe it is an indicator, a positive takeaway. Maybe it is an indicator that this conditional framework for sailing will not be the tool that is used to get cruising restarted. If there is no confidence in this order, if the CDC is not even saying that, yes, this is our order and we're going to execute it solely, then possibly this will not be the order in place to restart cruising. With all these other positive things going on, as we see a better level of control of the virus, of the disease here in the United States, maybe it will not, maybe this test sailings won't even be a thing. I don't know. I just found that interesting. I wanted to share that with you. I'm not trying to harp on the CDC. I think they have a completely hard job, but I don't see this public message from the CDC. I don't see that matching up to some of the other messages I've heard in the past. This seemed a lot more loosey-goosey. Can I use that? This seemed a lot more loosey-goosey than what I'd heard in the past. And so now I'm scratching my head, why this level of uncertainty? Like even in 2020, listening to Dr. Redfield, and now in 2021, listening to Dr. Walensky, I'd heard more certainty. And so now this seemed like a very uncertain message. So if not the CDC to finalize the next level of technical documents, then who? And this is a leader in the government asking that question and not getting an answer. So you can imagine cruise lines and lobbyists and your everyday Joe, obviously we're not getting the answer either. And as Senator Murkowski said, there is some comfort in certainty. and there is no certainty. So, boom, that's your cruise news. What do you make of all of that? Let's have the conversation in the comments. This is Tony with Lido Loca. Please hit the like button, watch this video, and until the next time, we'll see you on the Lido. Bye.